I think that we can start. It's 10 a.m. Algerian time. So thank you all for your interest in joining us to this 25th seminar or webinar of CRIAD, which will focus on aging perspectives in the Middle East. Before to start, I take to thank all participants in person or those who were able to be with us here at the meeting room of CRIAD, or those who are joining us via Zoom link. So I think also the National Committee for Population and the UNFPA are our partner in organizing this conference. So today's webinar will focus on enhancing the understanding of aging perspectives in the Middle East. The main talk of the webinar will be given by Professor Shereen HUSSEIN from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and also the founder and director of the MENARA Research Network, and will be shared by me, Farid FLICI. So I'm a senior researcher at CRIAD. I'm the managing director of the Human Development and Social Economics Research Department. I'm a member of the Population Studies team and the founder of the Actuarial Demography Working Group. So I am an actuary with the PhD in statistics, and I work mainly on actuarial demography research topics, including studying the implication of population-related risks such as mortality, longevity, aging, and morbidity, and their implication on Social Security, life insurance, and pensions. So I'm also a member of the National Committee for Population and also of the National Council of Statistics, and also a scientific advisor of the Algerian Association of Social Security Executives. So before to start, I will try to introduce, to provide you with a short introduction to the topic, starting by the big question, what's population aging? So population aging translates as the top of the population pyramid, which is enlarging faster than the basis of the pyramid, which means that the share of the old age population or the population ages 60 or 65 and older is growing faster than the share of the other parts of the population. And that's the case of Algeria, and we see here the population pyramid of Algeria and its expected evolution from now to up to 2070, and here we observe the ratio of the people at working age for one people at retirement age, or it's the ratio of the population aged between 15 to 59 on the population aged 60 and older. And just as a reminder, I grab your attention that this ratio has always evolved between 6 to 8. So we used to have, from the independence of Algeria to now, we used to have around from 6 to 8 people at working age, corresponding to one people at retirement age. But starting from 2022, this ratio is expected to fall down, the value of 6 for the first time in history, and expected to reach a value below 3 for 1 starting from 2045. So all the calculations, reports, and the data used in this for these projections are available in the links below. And that's the situation of the world regarding the population aging. So we observe that almost all the countries in the world are experiencing this population aging issue, but at different levels. And we observe that in the MENA region, the effect is, or the rhythm of, or the intensity of population aging is slighter than the rest of the world. So in the framework of our research activities at CRIAD, we made a lot of research on the topics, and we published many papers topic, and one was a blog in within the Minara Research Network on the future of population aging in Algeria, and we focus more on the effects of population aging on the financial sustainability of retirement system in Algeria. So all these publications and data files and reports can be found in my webpage here. So the objective of the today's webinar is to have a better understanding or a wider idea about what happens in the outside of Algeria, and especially in the MENA region. So that's why we have the pleasure today to invite Professor Shereen Hussein from the London School of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the UK. She is a trained medical demographer and has developed an established multidisciplinary research portfolio focusing in aging and long-term care. And she is also a research leader with extensive social care and health research experience, working primarily with policymakers not only in the UK, but with many in different corners of the world. So, and also she is the founder and the director of the MENA Research Network on Healthy Aging, starting from 2020. And also she used to work as advisory for different governments in the world, in Australia, Oman, Turkey, and other governments on long-term care policy. So thank you very much, Professor, for accepting our invitation. Believe me, it was not easy to find a time to schedule this webinar. Professor Shereen was very busy with the research activities related to population health and aging in the MENA region. So thank you again for giving us this opportunity. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you very much, Farid. Assalamu alaikum, jami'an. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be with you. And thank you very much for the introduction about what's population aging. I think that would be helpful, very helpful to the presentation. So I'm going to share my slides. So I've put them here. I'm going to put them on a slideshow. So no, this is the wrong. You're seeing the wrong one, right? You're seeing the wrong. The notes, right? You're not seeing the.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the proper one or the notes?
Yeah. Now we see the main slide.
Oh, great. Thank you. Because when you have multiple screens.
Yeah, but you need to make them to fit the screen, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I'm as Dr. Farid kindly said, I'm going to give you some ideas about understanding aging perspectives in the Middle East, and I'm going to structure my presentation around three main areas. So the first is, why is it really
Shereen, Professor Shereen, just you need to make the your slides to fit the screen, the full screen.
Oh, I think, yeah. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I think if we do that, here we
Thank
go.
you.
Is that any better?
That's better.
No, can you?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
You can see you can see the proper one, right? The proper presentation. Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing because I am in the wrong. Let me just share again. Here. Any better? Okay.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. Okay. So I will speak about three things. So the first thing is, why is it really important that we research aging in the region now, when it is actually still young region comparatively? And then I'm going to speak a little bit about the Menara network that Dr. Farid has kindly mentioned about its aim, what we do, what we hope to do in the near future. And then lastly, but not least, I'm going to focus on a piece of research that collected primary data from the region to try to understand the meaning of aging perception among older people and their informal carers, and try to conceptualize that. And this will draw on this paper that I provide a link to it in the reference section. So basically, first step, why is it essential to research aging in the MENA region? And Dr. Farid has kindly given some information about the change in Algeria, but this is happening in across the region. But what is interesting and unique about the region is the pace, how fast this change is happening. So, for example, in Europe, we have, as demographers, we have like measures to say this population as a whole is a young population or is moving towards aging. So it's not about individuals living longer, but it's about the whole population moving upward, as Dr. Farid have shown. So it relates to fertility rates, mortality rates, and life expectancy, of course. But this process is happening so fast in the region. So in traditionally, say in countries like France, this process took like 150 years to move from a young population to an aged population. It's expected for some countries in the region that in average it is going to happen will take around 20 years, and in some countries it is as little as 10 to 12 years. But this is also happening within lots of other shifts and mega trends around migration and family structure, and a very dynamic political and socioeconomic landscape, as well as an epidemiological change transition. What we mean by that is the causes of death are different. We're moving from communicable disease to non-communicable disease, which means that there is a heavier burden of morbidity. And that means that the level of needs of people and the pressure on the systems are quite different. But it's not all gloomy, because unlike Europe, we still have the treasure of young people. We have still what we call population dividends. We have a group of people still that could be active in the labor market, that could contribute to the economy, that could provide support to others. So what we call it is a window of opportunity. Hence, we really need to think about aging within the context of the wider population. But this window of opportunity said, we know that we have very high levels of unemployment and low contribution of these young people to the labor market. So there are differences between what we call population demographics and system demographics, and that speaks to the point of pensions and health systems. So I'm just going to show you these lines just to visualize what I'm talking about. So these lines at the bottom is dates where each of these countries has started their aging transition, and at the top is dates when they are expected to complete their transition. And you can see that there are some lines which is curved and some lines that it's almost up, and the lines that are very up, it means that they have a very small window of change, time to achieve change. So if you look, for example, to Saudi Arabia, there is only like 10 years between the time when they start and the time they finish. So this just to give you how astonishing the time that we have in some countries in the region to change policy, but more importantly, to change perception about the expectations and opportunities for older adults. And this is the point about the epidemiological transition. So, of course, longevity, which is, kind of the life expectancy, is to celebrate it, to be celebrated. We all live longer, but the problem that we live longer, but not necessarily live healthier for long. So the trends happening that a big chunk of our lives towards the end is lived in ill health. That it means that we have health conditions and we need care, and in many cases we have multiple health conditions. So I've just put in on this table different countries with reported life expectancy, the average life expectancy at birth, and that was in 2020, the data refers to, by gender, and then the healthy life expectancy. And you can see on the red colors that there is a good number of years lived in ill health, and there is differentials between women and men. So women usually tend to live longer, but they also tend to live longer with ill health, and that's really important to keep in mind. Again, this representation to say that yes, we have a common issue and experience in the region, but this is nuanced and diverse. So the shades in the left-hand side of the slide shows the level of aging. I didn't put North Africa here. I should, but this is borrowed from another article that was focused on Turkey, and hence why we were comparing Turkey to surrounding countries geographically and some Eastern European countries. But you can see that the shades are different. And the right-hand side is borrowed from a recent report of Minara that we did for the World Bank, and that actually shows you that the countries in the region are at different stages of the transitioning to aging population. So Algeria has already started their transition, and Lebanon and Tunisia, but there are other countries which is pre-transition. And some of these countries, once they start, the majority of the Gulf corporate countries, they will actually have between 12 to 15 years to finish. So they're going to have a very fast pace of change. So that's just to give you a preamble why it's important, why it's timely that we talk about these issues from different perspectives. And that is, I've been working on this area for quite a number of years, and that's what prompted me to think about mobilizing the kind of thinking through collaboration and engagement, and was led me to found the Minara network. So in the next few slides, I will tell you a little bit about the history of the network, what we do, and give you some examples of the work. So we have a website, and I encourage everybody to go and visit that one. It's www.minara.org, and we update it all the time with material, blogs and videos and commentaries. We officially launched in 2020 through grants from the UK Research Councils. At the time, there was something called Global Challenge Research Funds, where we could apply for some funding to create networks and partnerships. But it's really built on activities since 2015 when I started looking at these. So before then, I was really focused on the UK and Europe alone. And then I started to expand my work primarily because it was a very neglected area at the time. So we really focus on, so we started by doing some activities in the region, workshops, and the fruition of that was to establish the network. And we had a very good launch event where we were endorsed by the WHO and the UN, and you can watch the video of this launch. We wanted to focus on healthy aging in its broadest terms. So it's not just medical, it's about social well-being, it's about social connections, it's about engagement and contribution. And of course, it's about healthy behavior and trying to extend our healthy lives rather than just life expectancy. We are a network of researchers, NGOs, policymakers, and more. And we have a core team, but we have an expandable connection relationships. And Farid now is part of this network and kind of broader relations. So we were always looking for collaboration and connections with others. We have three core aims, which first to raise awareness and connect different actors, because we found that some people are interested in these topics, but they don't speak to the others. And it's really important to find a hub for people to connect and communicate. We apply for grants and get smaller funding to do bits of research and knowledge mobilization activities like building capacity. We work with policymakers. I think this is maybe one of the most thriving areas that we work with policymakers at the national level or the international level. So we collaborate with a big organization like the WHO, the UN, the World Bank, and also work with governments if they need to have advice through when they put their plans for aging more generally or for specific issues like long-term care. So I'm giving you some names of the groups that are on the core team. So you find, of course, myself from the London School of Hygiene. We've got the Global Health Equity Foundation. We've got the Healthy Lifespan Institute. We've got the Italian National Institute of Health and Science, and we've got Help Age International and the American University in Cairo, and Adnan Menderes universities in Turkey, among others. We also have, alongside our website, we have a YouTube channel where we try to record a lot of our activities, and I would be hoping that we would put this lecture on the YouTube channel as well. And we put material, we put interviews, we produce videos, little videos to bring the voices of people and their views. So you have a look at that and, kind of let us know your views. So the objectives are here, as I said, is very clear. We want to promote the agenda. We want to link stakeholders. We provide technical assistance, as I said, and do knowledge translation and exchange. So there are pockets of knowledge, say in Algeria, that Egypt will benefit from, that Morocco would benefit from, and also between Europe and the Middle East and the other way around. So the Europe now is really thinking about creating care communities and investing in social capital. And I think our region can provide a lot of good lessons and ways of thinking to Europe. So it's not one directional, it's multiple direction, these types of exchanges. So I'm giving you examples. So we have one initiative that we had some funding, small funding to understand the meaning of healthy aging in the MENA region. And this is where I will speak about the paper. We also have social media platforms. So we created in Arabic a Facebook page where people can communicate. And we have a hub of resources. So we have blogs, the publication, presentations, we have useful links. So you can, and these are updated all the time. So please visit and have a look at the work. And we also, during COVID, created a tool, an accessible tool. We created a number of training videos, culturally tailored physical training videos for people when they are at home to use materials at home, like water bottles as shown here, or rice bags to do basic physical activities because older people couldn't go out, and also included messages of hygiene. So if you sneeze, what to do, washing hands, etc. So that these were in Arabic and has Arabic actors and is translated in English, and they are on the YouTube channel. And what we do, as I said, in terms of supporting policymakers, so I'll give you a few examples. There has been the Building Forward Better report from UNESCO that came out last year. We worked very closely with the UNESCO to produce this report. We work with the WHO to promote their ideas around age-friendly communities and training for age-friendly communities. This is free training, by the way, so go to the website and sign up. You can receive that online free training. And a recent report for the World Bank that is specifically in details looking at the aging demographic and social protection. Again, you can look at the report online and you can request a free copy. So where are we going? We are continuing with our aims. We're trying to capitalize on international activities, so high level of policy attention, and we're really looking to collaborate with others, to present a more diverse and nuanced understanding of issues related to individuals, communities, as well as policy reforms. So thinking about retirement age, pensions, long life learning, social protection, and long-term care, among others. So this concludes the first two questions, and now kind of the last aim of this presentation, and I think the meat of the conversation is to provide you with empirical evidence around this understanding how aging perception are formulated in the MENA region. So the backdrop is that change is happening fast. The systems are not really prepared because it's a new thing, but they need to be prepared because it's happening very, very quickly. But not only the systems, the individuals themselves might be not in the best mindset to understand the expectations from them towards the community, toward themselves, toward their families when it comes to aging. So this study was facilitated, as I said, by a small grant that allowed us to do some field work in the region. And it really aims to conceptualize the process of aging in the MENA region, to try to understand how this is happening. The data was collected as part of the Minara network engagement activities, where we had over 50 one-to-one and group conversations with older people, informal carers, policymakers, researchers, and charitable organizations. And we did this at 3 time points. And you can see that one time point was during COVID, where we did a lot of WhatsApp conversations, people on the ground were calling by phone, speaking to people. And that was the time that we did the videos. So we used this as a trigger point for conversation. So we showed the videos to people, and then we had the conversation to talk about aging and expectations and healthy aging and activities, etc. We didn't really follow any specific interview schedule because it was all exploratory. It was more of a conversation and storytelling techniques. So we'd ask people to talk about how do they feel, their kind of life histories in a way, and then we could prompt to speak about specific things to do with aging. And for me, when I did the analysis, I used a reflectivity analytical process, but acknowledging really my positionality as someone that came from that region, very familiar with the cultural and religious code and context. So I was trying to separate myself from what people are saying, but at the same time use this as a capital to understand and decode messages that were very culturally specific. And I've put down the citation, the reference for that paper. So from the literature, there are 3 main concepts that could explain the process of aging perception, how aging perception is formulated. These are cultural. The cultural arguments say that in collective societies, like in the Middle East, you have higher respect and values for older people than individualistic societies that you may find in Europe, for example. And that should directly lead to positive aging views. So you will treat older people better, you will view them better, you will have a better experience. And then there is the modernization argument that say it doesn't have to do with the culture as much. It has to do with the level of modernization and industrialization, and the attitudes to aging aligns with that, whether it aligns in a good way or in a bad way. So hence that may produce a diverse, perceptions of aging and different aging views linked to where you are as a country in this modernization, kind of process, and how you're connected with its ideology. And then the last argument, or the last main arguments, because there were other arguments, is talking about the speed of aging. And they say that countries which are faced with a very fast change, this rapid and abrupt process may create resentments towards older people. This is because there is a competition over resources, and there is another theory that talks about competitions over resources. And this will lead in the majority to negative aging views, and hence in the MENA region, maybe that would be. The thing is that these theories are not independent. So some of them actually, they overlap with each other, and none of them in their own would fully explain how aging perceptions are formulated. And in the literature as well, there has been criticism to each one of them because it ignores certain aspects like gender, like ethnicity, like migration, or it makes generalizable assumptions based in the whole society rather than looking at differences within. So we started from this framework and went to look at the data that we collected, and I'll present some of the findings and we discuss what this might mean. So in terms of aging perspectives, the thing that we have to remember that all of us formulate the views about old age early on in our lives. So when we have experience as children, we see our grandparents, we see our neighbors, and we have some forms of view in our mind. And also we are very much affected by the life cycle of, there is some certain age where you get your education, then you go have a job, then you have a family, then you retire, and then you become old. And we have that, we internalize this. And what we've seen in the region is that life expectancy has been growing very fast. And there was a graph that I didn't put in because I thought it's a lot of information. But what it was saying that not only the life expectancy at birth that it was increasing, it's also the life expectancy at the age of 60. So, for example, someone who was who was 65 or say someone is 80 now. When they were 20, the life expectancy when they were 20 in their country was something around 45, 50 years. So that person grow up in their, young adulthood thinking that the majority of people die by age 60 or 70. They are not going to be here. They never thought about or planned for that. But then things improve, and that person, when they reach age 60, their life expectancy has been improved, and they actually carried on to live until 80. And then they were like, all this time is like extra time. I haven't thought about it very much. And this is exactly what we've been seeing, particularly when we talked with women over 80, a lot of them expressed something like, we're lucky that we are living that long. I personally did not expect to reach this age. And this is fundamentally important because it wasn't one-off. The vast majority of people would say, oh, we're too old now. Life is for the young. We never thought that we will be at that age at that point of time, because they haven't expected that when they were younger. So that's, I think, an important point to bear in mind of what we internalize as individuals because of the history that we've been through and the speed of changes that we've seen affect our kind of perception. But this perception also translates to when the family care for perceive us to age. So what we found that actually there is a different perception of a young woman and when an old woman and an old man, and when a woman becomes older and when a man becomes older. And what we saw in the conversations and dialogues that we have, that there is a perception that women age faster. So women perceive to be older at a younger age because of appearance, because biological factors, because they become mums very early, because they become grandparents. And then men are kind of, still kind of can go actively work or contribute. And we will find some of these gender differences later on. Then one big theme that came over and over in our conversation is this tension between respect and love and dependency and fragility. So there was a huge narrative of respect to older people, high sense of duty towards their parents. But this was very much positioned within a framework of vulnerability unlimited expectation from the older person. And that was like, you know, this researcher who actually described himself as an older person. He was, I think, 70. He said, he talked about this narrative and treasuring. And then he said, and then we have this tendency, we might call it respect, to treat older people as handicapped, as crippled. And he was saying that people say, well, no, sit down, don't do that. You know, we want to respect you. And that means that I become more dependent and more dependent. And then that was translated to the family, the offspring, when they were looking after their parents. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background of this piece. So we had a conversation with this informal carer who was an engineer in her 40s, early 40s. She's a sister of, she has two other sisters who are also engineers. She was the main carer for her mother. And what has happened, she was saying that it's because of us that she became more dependent. So when my mother retired from work, my sister and I wanted to make life easier for her. We prevented her from doing anything in the house or outside. We did this out of respect, too much over several years, that she quickly lost her ability to walk to the point that she has become a wheelchair user. What's interesting about this same person, that when she started talking about her father, who was older than her mother, she was concerned about his cognitive ability. She was concerned about him still having skills and ability to contribute, and he needs to find activities, and there is no like a community place that he can go to, like a library or a debate club, or even do volunteering. And that again highlights the kind of gender differences, that mothers are seen like, we have to protect you physically, but fathers, we need to keep you active and using your mind and going outside. Then that maybe lead us to, is there any mistreatment, any forms of abuse, kind of, you know, does this lead to social isolation when you overprotect people? And just to bring from the literature around mistreatment and abuse, it's a private issue, and it's very, very difficult to define. But there is a cycle of dependency and reliance within the family care dynamics. There is a dependability of the older person on the family. And then this dependability makes it very difficult to recognize and talk openly about potential mistreatment or abuse. So I'm going to tell you a little story here. Again, I'll give you some context and background. Nobody in the sample talked openly about mistreatment at all. Nobody said, I've been treated bad, I've been abused. But there was this example of this where a professional woman who was, you know, she's retired for many years, and she has been living alone as a widow from a young age because her husband died early. And she then, she's in her 80s, and she's drawing two pensions, hers and her husband's, late husband. And basically she's still living alone, but she's giving all her money to her son, who is living somewhere else, because she feels that, you know, he doesn't have a stable job and he has lots of responsibilities. So she feels this is part of this equation of obligations and sacrifice, and cross-generational duties. The thing is that she displayed a lot of unmet health needs. So she's kind of say, oh, many times I want to go to the doctors, but I don't have the cash because I allow my son to cash my pension. And then he has more priorities to spend the money on, and I have to wait and prioritize her own condition. So maybe from an external person, and I appreciate that I have a lot of European kind of influence. I've been living in the UK for over 35 years. So for me, that was an obvious thing of financial abuse. But maybe, again, I shouldn't read it this way, because I feel that there is definitely a level of unmet needs here. And she should have protected some of her money, or her son should have protected some of her money if she needed some of that to support her health care. But then I think what is came across much more stronger is this sense of isolation. And it's the inability to engage in a broader set of activities. And that was found among everyone we talk to, whether that is informal care, an older person living with their family, their offspring, or an older person living alone. It is this feeling that there is not much opportunity, not much things to do. And this woman who is lived with her adult son, and she was 79 years at the time. And she said, there is not much opportunity for me to participate. I sometimes go to the local mosque to recite Quran with a group of older women. However, there are minimal facilities for us older people. Even when you try to go out, it's impossible. The pavement is very high. How can I climb up or cross the road? The government should account for all the people when they design road and pavements. And that would speak to all the WHO work around age-friendly communities. How could you make a community age-friendly to allow people to go out, to be active, to do things, to participate, basically, and rather than just being confined to places and feeling isolated. And just to say about that, really, there was an example was given during COVID that was given in the light of this, a good thing, that because during COVID, people were not allowed to go out, there was a celebration, there was Eid celebration, and they couldn't buy kahk, they couldn't buy these cookies from the shop. So nobody in the house, this older person, actually the informal carer was telling this story. She moved to live with her son and his wife and children during COVID, and nobody in the house knew how to bake these cookies except grandma. So it was a rare opportunity that say, well, okay, we will, she was the center of the attention. She was cooking, baking, and everybody was learning from her. And they said that we never had this opportunity to interact at that level. So although that's a nice story coming from COVID, it tells you that generally people don't interact that much, even if they are living in the same home. So it was more about hi and hello, how are you today? And stops here. And that leads us to COVID. And for some, the COVID-19 has really intensified the feelings of isolation. And this is this woman saying, before COVID, I used to go on many trips. I enjoyed seeing new places. But now, because she spent a lot of time inside the home, she's so worried about going out. I fear I will fall. I'm afraid I will meet someone with a disease. I feel isolated and reliant on my son, who's busy and lives very far away and doesn't come often. And of course, as we grow older, if we don't use our muscles, we lose them very quickly. So lack of physical activities led to decline in functional and cognitive abilities. So this woman saying, this man who looks after his mom, who's 90, mom was very active every day. She used to go out to the Nadi leisure center, which is not far away. 2 years early, she used to do this on her own. Then we recruited a domestic helper. But then since COVID, she has been not active. She now really can't really walk to go to the toilet. So how people lose kind of physical, ability very quickly. So the discussion points, remember the hypothesis that we talked about. We talked about the speeds of aging hypothesis. It came across on several occasions that things are changing so fast that we really don't know what to do with ourselves or with our parents. The collective society hypothesis did not necessarily resulted in positive aging experience. So there was the embedded code of obligation, responsibilities it came across, but there was tension between treasuring older people and assumed dependency and frailty. I think there was a good narrative, a good intention, yet a lack of application mechanism. And these kind of created both the speed of aging hypothesis and the cultural narratives are again clashed in many ways. The modernization hypothesis did not really feature much in the data, although we had participants from different socioeconomic background, but maybe we need to have wider coverage of the region, so we have different countries, but this didn't really come across strongly. But what came across is this gender differences. So protecting older women from physical exertion while ensuring older men remain actively, cognitively active and physically active. So my concluding remark, this is my last slide, I promise. If we remember that we started with 3 hypotheses: cultural, modernization, speed of aging. We didn't see much of the modernization. The culture was related to a positive narrative, but it's very complex intergenerational model. The speed of aging, the abrupt changes to assumptions, duties, and responsibilities created confusion. And these really intersected and created more tensions. And that was situated within lack of opportunities or mechanisms for meaning participation, and really led to not a linear perception. It's a complex aging perceptions and expectations. And again, these theories didn't really capture the gender difference and the gender effect. So from here, what we really need to move on is continue advocacy and awareness, but it seems that we really need to work with younger generations that are coming up, so younger, kind of older adults in their 50s, to think about the future, to think about, as they grow older, what do they want to see in the community that would support him, what sort of opportunities they need to have, the lifelong learning, and create these policies, create these environments. That's it for me today. I've put in some references, and I'm happy to take any questions in the remaining bit of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shereen, for this nice talk and for sharing with us the insights from your research done about the aging perception in the MENA region. I don't know if someone in the attendance want to ask a question. So you have 2 choices, options. You can either write your question in the Q&A box, or you can just raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask your question by yourself. So waiting for the questions from the participants. I will have 1 or 2 questions to ask. So I think if I have understood the issue is that we have, first, people are living longer. That's the first issue. With life expectancy in the world countries has increased significantly this last year. So people are now living longer, but are they living a healthy life or not? That depends on different factors. So my question is, with the accelerating aging process in the MENA region, so as the share of the elderly is growing significantly so we'll have more and more elderly in one household. So does this change will affect the perception of aging, or the values, what we call values, since people try to take care of their appearance? So will this value change when we will have more and more elderly in the household? That's my first question.
Thank you, Farid. I think from the research, I don't think the value will change. I think it's the ability to do this caring. So I think the narrative is still very positive. The valuing people and trying to make the life to make them happy towards their end of their lives, and the kind of the religious code that we operate through, that it's very important to be kind to your parents. I think it's the ability to perform that, and also the meaning of this respect. So how can you translate these values, which is absolutely wonderful, into actual activities that would help the older person to have better quality of life, rather than just make life easier to them, because they might enjoy cooking, they might enjoy cleaning, they might enjoy being more involved So we are making assumptions, the younger generations making assumptions for them. So that's the first thing. But the other thing is that we're not living in a static world, and these demographic shifts are not happening in isolation. There is a lot of socio-demographic shifts as well. So we're seeing smaller families, we're seeing families that are not living together, living far apart. We're seeing high level of migration when there actually no family. The will is there, but the actual person that is involved is not there. And at the same time, we don't see a strong regulated care services. So what we see that many people would need this companionship, they would need this support, which is a different level of support, just to go out or maybe care for them in a certain way, make sure they take medications. But there is no one to rely on, because there has been a lot of mobility in their communities, so that even the old neighbors are not there. And then when they start to try to find a paid service, there is no system to regulate the service. So we're seeing a lot of fragmented care service, unreliable care services. So I think what we can do and recommend is to generate mechanisms for this goodwill and values that already exist and embedded in our cultures, to direct it to the correct ways of supporting people, encouraging older people to be more active, to be physically more active, to be economically more active, to have a clearer and more significant roles in the communities. So I think that has to happen very quickly, because Farid, your question started by these quick changes. So within a generation, less than a generation, within 10, 20 years, the existence of older people, which is something to be really celebrated, will be much bigger. But also we want to tackle this healthy issue. So younger generation, the 50s and the 40s, need to look after their health better, because they are going to live another 40 years. So if someone is 40, it's likely that they will live at least another 40 years. So they have to protect these 40 years and start their healthy behavior earlier on to look after their health. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much for this answer. So we have another question from a colleague of mine, Dr. Khadija Abu Said.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Professor Hussein, for your intervention. It was really interesting and really truly interesting. So I have 3 questions, basically. The first one is like methodological one. I would like to know what kind of protocols did you put in place epistemically and ethically to turn your subjectivity to objective analysis, especially with the qualitative data? Because you talked about the life stories, so you're talking about like how to like put a distance between you and the people you've talked with. So what kind of protocols did you use to turn your subjectivity to objective analysis? The second question for me is, you said that you observe a fast change when we talk about aging. Did you also notice like a cultural shift in the way of considering and taking care of elders? Because we know that in Western countries, like we have specific structures taking care of elders, and in our societies like Middle East and also Muslim societies, we have these cultures of solidarity and taking care of elders. Did you notice that this stream or this mainstream is different now? Do you notice this cultural shift, if there is any? And the last question, can you give us some, because you talked about the importance of the family structures. So can you give us some?
Oh, I think I lost them.
Yes, we lost them. Yes, I think so. They come back.
Yeah. Sorry, we lost the last question.
Okay, no worries. Would you like, I had to repeat the last question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So the last question is about, you talked about the importance of the family structures. So I would like to know, I would like to have some details about the impact of the family structure and the role of affect when it comes to aging. I mean, in its perception. Is there, in the problematic of the perception, a role or an impact of the family structures, the different positions in the families, and the relationships between yes, when we talk about kinship, is the kinship a role in how we consider, how we perceive the aging? And thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. They are very important questions, and I'll try to answer them as fully as possible, but concisely as possible. So in terms of methodologically, there is a lot of literature around positionality. So many researchers do research within communities that they are familiar with. So it's a protocol of trying to separate yourself from the participant, and trying to be, as you said, very objective about what they say. And this is kind of by repeating visits and also conversation with other people who are less familiar with the culture. So I actually run some of these quotations with other colleagues in the network to see their take and to get my take as well. There is some of nuances that I can get more than others, but I think with this type of analysis, you cannot 100% separate yourself from the participants and what they say, and hence you have to explicitly mention that your positionality, and this is what I did in the paper. So it will be up to the critiques to think about how far I have been embedded within that. But again, it has its positivity. In terms of the fast relationship, the fast change in demographic, this is easy to capture because it's easy to capture through data that is recorded. The shift in solidarity is less easy to capture because we didn't have research on aging that looked at the solidarity and the values earlier on. There's some research from the early noughties, but it's very, very limited. And hence you can only go with what you have now and what other people has written. And I think the narrative remains, and it remains very strong in even the policy documents. If you look at the most recent League of Arab States aging policy, you will find that solidarity features so much in it. And also, if you look at the Turkish kind of policies, it's talking about family solidarity and the role of the family. So I don't think there is a shift in the narrative. I think it's the tricky part is how is that applied. But at the same time, I've seen and I observed the burden that there is a realization that we want the best for our parents. But we can't do just, and we need to support from other parties and other agencies. And then the lack of a formal market or regulated market causes a lot of trouble and issues for the informal carers and for older person. Then the last question is about family structure. I think this is really important, and the kinship and gender plays a role here, and who's responsible to do that, to do what, and there is both men and women care, but they care in different ways, but it's actually being formulated at the moment. What I'm seeing from this conversation that a lot of people is actually struggling to find the meaning of care and the right care to their parents, and they are trying to come up with solutions. So it's very fluid, which is a very exciting place to study where it will go. I hope that answers briefly your questions, but they are very big topics, and each one has lots of discussion and debates, both in literature and in empirical research. But we'd be happy to take it at another point. But I hope that would give you some ideas or some response.
Thank you very much for these answers. I don't know if there are other questions. Azri. We have a question from Dr. Azri Khoucha. I don't know if she wants to ask the question herself or...
Oui, bonjour. Je ne sais pas si je peux la poser en français ou bien je dois traduire en anglais.
Vous pouvez le poser en français, ensuite on va essayer de faire la traduction.
I
merci
don't
beaucoup.
speak French, but if you want to speak in Arabic, تحبي تتكلم بالعربي أنا ممكن أرد.
ما فيش مشكلة Professor Hussein. We will take the question in French and then I will try to translate the question.
Sure.
Is it okay with you?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah, sure.
Donc, je vous remercie pour la conférence
Thank
qui
you.
est très intéressante. Donc, thank you for your conference.
I got the bit. It's very interesting, and thank you. I got that.
Yes, ouais, j'ai fait un effort, donc j'ai compris. Donc, dans l'ensemble, j'ai compris. Ben, je voulais vous faire beaucoup plus un commentaire et une question. En Algérie, donc le vieillissement, il dépend en partie de la transition sociétale. Alors, il y a l'accélération de l'urbanisation, l'alphabétisation des femmes, il y a une nucléarisation de la famille. Mais en partie aussi, il dépend de la situation économique, donc du pouvoir d'achat. La natalité et le taux de natalité et la longévité, donc même l'espérance de vie, dépend des capacités économiques, du pouvoir d'achat du ménage. Donc, même pour les soins, parce que là, on a une espérance de vie assez élevée, mais la qualité de vie, donc, elle dépend des capacités financières à supporter les soins lents et coûteux. Je pense que le contexte en Algérie, ça doit être la même situation au Maghreb, est différent des pays développés. Dans les pays développés, on parle du vieillissement qui est causé en grande majorité du changement donc démographique, de la mentalité. Les gens font moins d'enfants donc par choix. Alors, je ne sais pas votre lecture pour la différence entre les deux. Et je voudrais juste relater sur un point, quand vous parlez donc d'un changement de la structure, que les gens, les personnes âgées se sentent de plus en plus isolées. Eh ben, malheureusement, c'est le cas en Algérie. Donc, c'est vrai que la prise en charge des personnes âgées, elle dépend selon les régions, donc rurales et urbaines. Mais même dans les pays musulmans, même dans les pays africains, et de plus en plus, les personnes âgées manquent de prise en charge. Je ne parle pas de la prise en charge médicale, mais ici de la prise en charge psychologique et cette insertion, donc même pour les déplacements, pour les soins, même pour quand une personne est alitée, carrément alitée, alors c'est très difficile de trouver quelqu'un pour la prise en charge s'il n'y a pas le conjoint. Donc la solidarité familiale, elle commence à disparaître même dans les pays musulmans, malheureusement, à cause de les obligations du travail professionnel, ainsi de suite. Donc voilà, donc je ne sais pas, est-ce que dans vos études, vous avez fait le point sur cette réalité? Voilà, je vous remercie.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Khoukha. Professor Shereen, I will try to make the question simple and concise. If I understood the question, it was about the difference in terms of epidemiological transition in the MENA region and in the industrialized world. The extension of life expectancy is usually determined by a set of factors, economic and sociological. We have like purchasing power and quality of life. So we have people who live longer and longer, but not necessarily healthier. And from the other side, we have this family solidarity in the even in the Muslim countries and in the MENA region. we start to have lesser and lesser impact. So people get less and less involved in taking care of their elderly. So the question is, do you have any comment on that?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Azi. I think that's a name. It's Azri. Is that right? Or what? Is that I'm reading that right? I think you summed up that there is the epidemiological transition and there is the longevity, and that is happening with socioeconomic changes and demographic changes and fertility changes. I got some of your bits, and I think your focus on quality of life is really important because this is a shift in thinking. We shouldn't have a narrative of just a number of years that we're living and that's a tick box. We need to talk about the quality of life. And you're right about the, to a large extent, if people at a higher socioeconomic class, they will have better ability to access medical help and medical care and long-term care, and that would improve longevity and health in general. However, it's not necessarily the case, because healthy aging comes with all this behavior that subtle behavior that I talked about, that preventing people from engaging and participation and having a role to play, because it's really important for people to feel valued within the society, to be happy. If you give me all the money in the world and ask me to stay at home and you will prepare the food for me and everything, very quickly I will become depressed and kind of, I want to have a role. I want to be, influence the lives of people and let other people influence my life. So I think the narrative that we have is really good as a starting point, but we need to prevent it from being an obstacle in the social policy domain. So we don't want systems to say, you Muslims, you the Middle East have this solidarity and strong values of older people, so you sort yourself out and try to fix it without any guidance, because it is not enough. It's without a manual of how to translate this love and respect into practical actions to impact the quality of life of the older person and the family, because we talk about family, we talk about kinship. It's all kind of intersecting and have effects on all the agents and players in this situation. So I think as researchers, as people who have the knowledge, we have a responsibility and duty to call for finding solutions to translate that respect, and having the infrastructure to do that, and having the media support us to portray the upcoming generation in a good way, and to start from younger generation. In fact, I've been talking to other people in the region that we need to start from school age, from children going to school, to learn about the life cycle, about old age, about what happened when we come to our older years after retirement. For many, life stops at retirement, kind of, that's it, and then I'm going to rest. And what rest means? Nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have a construct or definition. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I think your focus on quality of life is spot on, and your focus on all these kind of socio-demographic factors that surround the aging is also spot on. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I think that this answered the question asked by Dr. Azri Khoucha. I think that we have two other questions that will be asked by my colleague Filla Jani, who assists me for the Q&A section.
Please, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, we just ask the two questions, and we go back to you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear because it's far away. I'm sorry, I can't hear because it's far away.
Hello, do you hear me?
We will
yes,
start.
Good morning.
I can hear Fela for a bit.
I was saying that we have two questions, and then we go back to Professor Brahmia, Yasmina, and Amina.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, definitely.
So thank you, Professor, for this presentation. Okay.
I think Farid is wrong. Can you mute so I can hear you? Bella, I think if you talk now, everybody else is muted, so there won't be an echo.
Is it better?
Yes. Yes, I think now it's good.
Unmute. So it's unmuted, I think.
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. So the first question was, what makes us say that we are going through a successful aging? Are there health indicators that provide enough evidence to answer this question? The second one is, what are the assumptions that what are the assumptions that the result presented in the first figures, the arrows that talks about the aging, the colonization, are built on?
Sure.
That's
sure.
it.
So I'll start by the second one because this is easier.
Thank you.
So these are the assumptions are based on the UN projections. So it takes into account projections in the changes in fertility rates and changes in mortality rates. It doesn't take into account anything about healthy aging. It's only concerned with the life expectancy, and the transition in demography is the aging transition is defined as a certain proportion of the population to be over the age of 65. So the starting point is like 7%. And when that percentage reaches 14% at the population level, then that means that the country has completed its transition and entered into aged population. So there was like an aging population, it's going through the transition. And then when it reaches 14%, it's declared as aged. So these are the assumptions. It's very arbitrary. And I would agree with you. And I argue that a 65 years old woman in the Middle East will have a completely different, maybe life, outlook than a 65 years old woman living, say, in Scandinavia, where the health indicators are much higher, and then they have a better quality of life. So these statistical and demographic indicators doesn't take into account the quality of life or the kind of healthy longevity. So that's the first one. Now your first question, which is about what makes us having a successful aging experience, is a very complex one, and there has been a lot of work done on that. But there is a framework of healthy aging that the UN Decade of Healthy Aging has put in, and this is linked to the medical side of health. So if you are free from disease, or you have manageable conditions that allows you still are able to participate. And there is a social aspect of it. So you have participation, you can have opportunity to engage, and you have opportunity to have fun, lifelong learning, so the ability to try new things and try new activities, and of course the cognitive side, so the cognition and lack of diseases like dementia, and that is really framed around the individual, then collectively how many people are in this group collectively are experiencing that. I would say that if we try to translate that to the kind of Middle Eastern context, is the kind of ability to have the opportunity to engage, have the ability to engage, whether that is physical ability, cognitive ability, socioeconomic and financial ability, and the infrastructure abilities. So the infrastructure allows you to participate, gives you an opportunity. There is no discrimination because of age or because of gender. It's not the closed door. So there are some frameworks available in terms of their generic terms that looks at all these factors of health, of function, of financial well-being, but none of them are translated to the region. And I think it will be really a good activity to try to translate that into the specific context where we live in. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. We will take two questions quickly because we have only 15 minutes left. So we'll take the question from Yasmina, and then we move to Professor Ibrahim Brahmiya.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Yasmina, you're muted.
Yasmina and Professor Brahmiya, we will.
الآن.
Yes.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
سلام، أنا جد سعيدة بتواجدي معكم في الجزائر، يعني كما لو كنت أني زرت الجزائر في هذه اللحظة، ومع الأستاذة أيضا وما قدمته. في الحقيقة أنا بصفة عامة يعني فهمت يعني الموضوع بصفة عامة. يعني مؤخرا أنا كنت قدمت رسالتي حول أخلاقيات رعاية المسنين حالة الجزائر. أنا مقيمة هنا في إسبانيا، هنا قدمتها في جامعة فالنسيا. طبعا هنا محتوى يعني الاقتراب دراسات هنايا في المؤسسات، يعني في الجامعة في المجتمع الغربي، هو يخالف طبعا الثقافة نتاعنا والاقتراب نتاعنا تاع المجتمعات نتاعنا، خاصة يعني سواء المجتمع الجزائري أو المجتمعات المسلمة بصفة عامة. لذلك كنت يعني طرحتها وانا يعني طرقت في الدراسة تاعي. الدراسة كانت من الناحية البنيوية، من ناحية مثلا العائلة الممتدة، هذه التضامن اللي موجود فيها، يعني كان موضوع جد مهم بالنسبة يعني هنا ممكن يكون عادي احنا في المجتمعات نتاعنا، ولكن في المجتمعات الغربية يعني كان هناك نوع من لفت الانتباه كيفاش هذا، خاصة يعني من خلال المقابلات إلى غير ذلك، كيفاش هذا المجتمع، هذا التضامن، هذا المكانة اللي عندها الإنسان المسن، هذه السلطة اللي عنده الإنسان المسن في وقت حنايا الآن، خاصة يعني احنا المجتمعات نتاعنا راهي تعيش هذه التغيرات، فما بالك في المجتمعات الغربية التي هي بعيدة عن هذه القيم التي عندنا نحن يعني في المجتمعات نتاعنا. وإن كانت يعني بطريقة يعني هناك تغيرات في المجتمع، ولكن من ناحية الأخلاقيات إلى غير ذلك، ولكن في الحقيقة أنا أظن أن هناك ما زالت هذه الأخلاقيات، خاصة من خلال يعني بعض المعطيات الدراسات اللي تطرقت إليها من خلال يعني دراستي. أولا الفصل تاع أخلاقيات الرعاية يعني بالنسبة للمجتمع الجزائري، ما زالت مثلا في حالة دراسة حول الشباب إلى غير ذلك، هناك جوانب تعكس هذه الأخلاق من خلال معطيات، من خلال طبعا أرقام إلى غير ذلك. ومثلا في المجتمعات نتاعنا واش لاحظنا، ما زالت هذه الزيارات، وإن كانت يعني هناك نقص إلى غير ذلك، ولكن مثلا هناك أيضا نمو البعد الديني. أنا مثلا نشوف باللي كاين أكثر تضامن. لما نجي للجزائر مثلا نشوف الناس عندهم أيضا واحد لا كونسيبسيون، يعني واحد لا كونسيبسيون تاع الدين الى غير ذلك، يعني جد يعني نلقى انها يعني ارتفعت للسنوات اللي انا كنت يعني فيها الان اكثر من 30 سنه وانا متواجده هنا. يعني سبحان الله كاين هذا، وان كان يعني ما ممكن يكون دخول المراه الى العمل هو اللي خلى يعني تحس يعني هذا لايزولاسيون، يعني هذا الانعزال الانسان المسن والحسوس بهذا الفراغ الى غير ذلك. ولكن بصفه عامه ومن خلال يعني الدراسات الى غير ذلك، انا متفائله بالنسبه للمجتمعات نتاعنا انها الانسان المسن عنده مكانه، عنده كما قلت لكم صح كاين بعض التغيرات الطفيفة، ولكن في الحقيقة ما زالت عندنا يعني من خلال هذا الرصيد نتاعنا الديني والأخلاقي اللي عندنا في المجتمع. وشكرا. يعني ما رأيك أنت يا
أيوة،
أستاذة؟
شكرا جزيلا دكتورة ياسمين. أنا
الأستاذ
أحب
برهمية.
صحيح، هل أرد ولا
لا
You can ask my
ننتظر
question.
سؤال ثاني ناخذ سؤال ثاني من طرف البروفيسور إبراهيم برهمية،
Okay.
ثم سأعطيك الكلمة.
First, I thank you very much, Dr. FLICI, for have invited me to the conference. And in second, I'd like to thank also Professor HUSSEIN for this interesting conference. I have to ask about two topics. The first, I'd like to have the point of view of the Professor HUSSEIN concerning the aging implication in the healthcare workforce for the Arab countries. The health workforce needed to deal with the non-communicated diseases and of aging population. We know that non-communicable diseases constitute about 80% of the causes of deaths. That's really a challenge. And are the Arab countries able to train specialists and to avoid the migration of your specialists abroad? That is really, I think it's really a challenge. Another question, if you agree, do you think that the two phenomenon of aging increase, the degrees of young people in Arab countries do constitute a high challenge for economic activity itself? Yeah. For example, on 2050, the aging population in concerning Algeria will constitute about a fourth of the, c'est-à-dire le quart ou bien le cinquième de la population totale. That constitutes a challenge for the activity, the economic activity. And thank you very much for the answer.
Thank you. Farid, do you want to take another question or shall I respond?
No, I think that I prefer that you answer those two questions and then we move to the rest.
Yeah, first I will go to Dr. Yasmin and thank you for pointing out to this. sorry, شكرا دكتورة ياسمين على السؤال بتاعك. ويعني أنا أحب إن أنا أبقى أقرأ الدراسة بتاعتك. وفي الحقيقة هو ده اللي يعني جزء من اللي ورد عندنا إن في الدراسة اللي أنا عملتها إن المكانة والتضامن ده شيء عالي جدا وكان بيتكرر كتير في اللقاءات اللي احنا خدناها. لكن أعتقد إن طريقة التطبيق هي اللي ممكن يبقى فيها مشكلة. إن هو معناها إيه إن أنا يبقى عندي يعني بحب الكبار وبحترمهم وليهم سلطة وليهم رأيهم مهم. إزاي بقى أنا أترجم ده لحاجات فاعلية إنها تحسن حياتهم الاجتماعية وتحسن جودة الحياة اليومية بتاعتهم. إن هو مش بس كفاية إن إحنا نحترمهم، لازم يبقى عندنا طرق ان احنا نخليهم يتداخلوا معانا في الحياة العامة، يبقى ليهم الهوايات بتاعتهم، يبقى ليهم اماكن يتقابلوا فيها ويعملوا يعني انشطة، مش بس ان هم يبقوا احنا بنحترمهم وبنعزهم ونحضنهم ونبوسهم وكل الكلام اللي احنا بنعمله ده اللي هو قائم من الاحترام اللي هو اساسه الدين والثقافة. لكن ما فيش اعتراض، احنا عندنا فعلا مخزون. وفي الحقيقة المجتمع الغربي ابتدى دلوقتي يفكر في اوكي احنا ما عندناش عائلات لكن عندنا مجتمعات بيسموها كوميونيتي او نيبرهود، وان المجتمع ده الكوميونيتي الصغير ده هو اللي كأنه يتفاعل كأنه عائلة كبيرة أو عائلة ممتدة، ويبقى عندنا زي يعني duties و responsibilities، يعني نبقى احنا مسؤولين عن بعض. فهم بيحاولوا كأنهم يعني ينقلوا الفكر اللي هو جاي من حوالين الثقافة اللي هي احترام وكلنا مجتمع واحد وعلينا مسؤولية ان احنا ناخد بالنا من بعضنا كعيلة كجيران، اللي هي جاية من الدين، ان هم يحاولوا ينقلوها بس من غير الحته بتاعت العائلات، لان ما فيش عائلات طبعا بالشكل الكبير، لكن العائله لسه مرتبطه مع انها اصغر يعني. فيعني نقطه مهمه، واعتقد انا حاولت اوضح في البرزنتيشن ان هو الموضوع مش سيء، لكن هو ازاي ان احنا نترجمه لحاجات عمليه، يعني نترجمه بشكل ان هو مش نقيد الكبار في تفكير معين او نحطهم في قالب معين ان هو هي دي مسؤولياتك وهي دي الحاجات اللي انت ممكن تعملها. فاعتقد يعني يبقى كويس ان انا اتلاقى مع حضرتك في حاجة تانية، ويا ريت ايميل مي الدراسة بتاعتك وناخد ده الموضوع فورورد يعني. Professor Ibrahim, يعني thank you so much. You have يعني asked two very important points. So the first one is the workforce, which is an issue that is of paramount importance. And an issue that is not taking enough policy attention. So we talk about health systems, but we don't talk about the cadre of workforce. We started to talk about that. And if you look at the UNESCO reports that I mentioned in the presentation, there is a big conversation about the workforce that is needed, that has different levels of qualification. So as you said, you need doctors, you need nurses who deal with non-communicable diseases, but you also need trained staff to provide care in the person-centered and dignifying manner that is respectful, but also aligns with the best practice and aligns with our culture. That the way that we provide the care would be different. That is completely missing, and I mentioned that a little bit in my presentation. That is this is dangerous and a challenge, because now people relying on a market that is not regulated. You get, if you don't have a family, but you say your family lives apart and they want to bring a carer to you, this carer has no training, they have no ability to read your medication, they have no idea how to care for an older person, so they usually treat the older person as a young child, as a baby. They don't respect their wishes. There is a lot of negligence, and also there is a lot of turnover. So they don't do this, they don't invest in it. So this day you have that person, the next day you have another person, and this is very disrupting for an elder person because you want to have this continuity of care. And you also touched upon this migration issue, and this is, of course, there is a huge literature in terms of the brain drain and the ability of maintaining a level of stock in the country, that this is my stock, this is what I need to keep before you think about exporting this. And I think this issue will become even bigger in the fora in the next decade or two, because now we know that there are shrinking populations in the European countries, and there is always debates around we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses. The UK is a prime example, but across Europe. And I think there has to be bilateral agreements with countries in the region. So we know that there are some countries like Egypt is an importer of doctors and nurses. And similar to what happened with the Philippines, we need some bilateral agreements in terms of the stock and the groups that could be traveling, and how the high-income countries can support the low and middle-income countries financially to produce and train this workforce and cadre. So I think there is a lot of politics to play here. Your last point is about the tension between the young people and the older people. And I said in the presentation, this is a window of opportunity. And I think it is a window of opportunity if we manage it well. If we keep presenting these as competing priorities, there will be clashes and there will be resentfulness and repercussions. We need to think of policies that integrate the two. And I think there is enough ability to absorb if we build the labor market. So we're just talking about training more people in the health and care. that's an opportunity to bring in younger people, get them work trained, get them working, get them contribution to the taxation and the pension system. And that doesn't negate that you find opportunities for older people also to work as consultant or volunteer. So it needs a little bit of kind of the narrative we speak in terms of policy and presenting these issues is to highlight the economic benefits of having the two groups contributing. So I hope that kind of, touch base on the question, but they're very wide topics.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, we have three questions left. So we have the first question is: هل تطرقتم في دراستكم إلى الناحية الاقتصادية وتأثيرها على المسنين، خاصة بالنسبة للنساء اللاتي يعيشن أكثر من الرجال؟ السؤال الثاني. I will try to ask the three questions.
Sure.
And then you answer, and we will end with this because we have just few minutes left. The second question: سؤالي حول الحياة الاجتماعية للمسنين. ما هو واقع الحياة الاجتماعية للمسنين في منطقة الشرق الأوسط؟ هل هناك سياسات واضحة المعالم لإعادة إدماجهم في مجتمعاتهم في ظل التحولات الديموغرافية والاجتماعية الراهنة، خاصة بعد فقدانهم لمراكزهم المهنية بعد تقاعدهم ومعاناتهم من المراض المتعددة وأوقات الفراغ؟ السؤال الثالث: كيف يمكن بناء سياسة أو استراتيجية التكفل بالمسنين في ظل اختلاف الأطر الثقافية التي تؤثر بشكل كبير على تصورات الشيخوخة في بلدان المتوسط؟
شكرا جزيلا. أنا هبدأ بالسؤال الأول from ميرا أمينة. أنا هجاوب بالعربي لأن أعتقد هو الأسئلة مكتوبة باللغة العربية. هو إحنا في الحقيقة الدراسة بتاعتنا كانت محصورة جدا على المتاح من البيانات والقدرة إن إحنا نقدر نتكلم مع بعض الشخصيات. يعني دي ما كانتش دراسة واسعة جدا. لكن أنا ممكن أرد من الناحية دي. إحنا في الحقيقة عندنا نقص بيانات يعني مرعب من ناحية الحياة الاجتماعية والثقافية لكبار السن. فإحنا عندنا مسوح كتيرة في الوطن العربي لكن بتقف عند العمر 49 سنة أو 50 سنة. فإحنا ممكن ندرس اللي عندهم الأعمار دي من كل النواحي، من ناحية التعليم، من ناحية الدراسة، من ناحية المعيشة، من ناحية الحالة الاقتصادية. لكن لما نيجي لكبار السن ما عندناش معلومات متاحة كافية إطلاقا إن إحنا نقدر نعمل دراسات فعلا توصلنا للموضوع ده. لكن إحنا تطرقنا شوية من ناحية الحالة الاقتصادية في العينة الصغيرة اللي إحنا أخدناها. فالعينة اللي إحنا فيها حتى الناس اللي يعني مستوى الاجتماعي بتاعهم عالي ما كانش فيه اندماج كبير للسيدات. كان فيه يمكن انتباه للاندماج للرجال من ناحية إن هو عندهم القدرة الاجتماعية وعندهم القدرة الثقافية والمادية إن هم يحاولوا يعملوا أنشطة. لكن حتى الرجال كانوا بيشتكوا إن مفيش فرص كافية، يعني مفيش فرص كافية إن هم يعملوا حاجة intellectual، يعني يعملوا حاجة ثقافية تشغل بالهم. يعني ممكن يروحوا يتكلموا مع آخرين أو كذا، أو يتابعوا، هم يقروا جرايد أو كده. مفيش حاجة منظمة تساعدهم إن هم يستعملوا الفانكشنز بتاعتهم. فدي نقطة مهمة جدا ممكن نتطرق ليها. وفي دلوقتي أنا عارفة مجهودات حاصلة في مصر ولبنان في بحث جديد، دراسة جديدة هيبتدوا يجمعوا بيانات عن يعني كل الحالات بتاعة الكبار السن، المعيشة بتاعتهم دي. يعني بيطبقوا دراسات اتعملت ومسوح في أوروبا اسمها شير، هم مسمينها الصحة، دراسة الصحة. فدي لسه هتبدأ بجمع البيانات، فممكن دي تدينا يعني قدرة ان احنا ندرس الموضوع ده بشكل اوضح. فده اول سؤال. السؤال الثاني عز الدين I think اللي هو كان باعت مواضيع حول الحياة الاجتماعية للمسنين، برضك هي ليه مرتبط بالسؤال ده. أنا أعتقد إن حاليا الموجود كلها جهود فردية، يعني جهود فردية أو جهود عائلية، هم يحاولوا يعملوا حاجة بنفسهم، مفيش حاجة منظمة في المجتمع. في شوية يعني initiative. يعني في لبنان في اللي هي اسمها Senior Citizens University or University of the Third Age. هم عملوا زي جامعة لكبار السن، جامعة ما يكونش فيها مصاريف، وكبار السن ممكن يروحوا ويتقابلوا وياخدوا يدرسوا شيء، يدرسوا فلسفة، يدرسوا سياسة. فدي في الحقيقة يعني initiative كويسة قوي، موجودة في بيروت، بس في الجامعة الأمريكية في بيروت. فطبعا اللي بيستفيد منها هم ناس في حالة اجتماعية معينة وعندهم يعني financial ability وprofessional إن هم يقدروا يستفيدوا من الشيء ده. لكن ما فيش في الحقيقة حاجة موجودة كاستراتيجية أو حاجة بشكل عام في الوطن العربي إنها تدرس ده. نرجع تاني لميرا بتتكلم على الاستراتيجيات التكفل بالمسنين. يعني مش فاهمة بالظبط التكفل مقصود بيه ايه. هل هي استراتيجيات social protection يعني support for a basic protection floor؟ اعتقد في طبعا دلوقتي الاستراتيجية للليج اوف Arab States اللي هي الجامعة العربية كانت عملت درافت الاستراتيجية مسنين من كذا سنة، بس دي مش مفعلة لسه، لكن بتتطرق لجوانب كثيرة من ناحية بردك يعني contextualize أو محطوطة في إطار الثقافة بتاعتنا، في إطار السوليداريتي، إن في support من الفاميلي والكوميونيتي، لكن دي مش مطبقة. لكن في الحقيقة بتتطرق لأشياء كثيرة، منها الإعلام ومنها الفرص للأنشطة ومنها المسؤولية ان الدوله مسؤوله انها تسهل even للكوميونيتي والفاميليز انها تخلق الفرص دي. فاي هوب ان ده يعني يرد على الثلاث اسئله بشكل عام. اعتقد الكونكلوجن الخلاصه اللي انا عاوزه اقولها ان احنا يعني بدانا، واضح ان المجتمع العربي كله ابتدى يفكر في الموضوع ده، بس بيفكر فيه لسه في الاول خالص، ومش محطوط في اطار مشترك مع التشالنجز اللي موجوده الاخرى. فمحتاج يبقى في استراتيجية عامة للمجتمع، يعني يبقى نفكر في كل الفئات الاجتماعية وكل الفئات العمرية. I'm sorry that for people who speak English, I was speaking in Arabic or speaking French that they didn't understand me. I hope you get the gist of it.
ما في مشكلة. نأخذ تدخلين آخرين من مهدي تلبولما وبديع حدوش.
معلش أنا يعني عاوزة أقول حاجة، بس إن أنا عندي اجتماع عاوزة أتأكد بس الساعة كام كمان، يعني ابتدى بقاله دقيقة، فيعني هحتاج إن أنا أعتذر للأسف.
ما في مشكلة.
آخر لكن طبعا يعني أنا سعيدة إن الموضوع مهم كده لجروب كتير، وأتمنى إن دي ما تكونش آخر لقاء أو آخر مناقشة، لكن في الحقيقة أنا لازم يعني أعتذر حالا دلوقتي.
مشكورة كثير. Thank you very much for this nice presentation, and hope to have you soon in other conferences.
Thank you, and I look forward to the recording, and I'll put a blog on it. And please visit the Minara website and subscribe, and email me with any questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Salam. هل من متدخل؟ أميوت. ما شو اسمه فيك بديع؟ ميكرو تيرور أو مهدي؟ نعم.
الو.
نحن في الاستماع.
جيد، شكرا. شكرا استاذ فريد. يعني ندخل بالعربيه.
مفيش مشكل.
نقدم العمل تاعنا بصفه مختصره. نحن مركز موارد للشيخوخه وقتاي دو جيرونتولوجي. نعمل منذ سنوات في هذا الميدان، يعني في القطاع الجمعوي. والان اسسنا مؤسسه اقتصاديه يعني عندها بعض الاشهر من اللي بدات العمل الجاد. يعني الناحيه الاقتصاديه تسمح لنا من اتخاذ اجراءات يعني اقتصاديه وكوميرسيال من اجل جمع الاموال وتنشيط القطاع الشيخوخه بصفه عامه. يعني في اعمالنا هناك عده اشغال. انا نعمل على مساندة القطاع الجمعوي والقطاع الاقتصادي بصفة غير رأسمالية، من حيث أنه بصفة يعني على سبيل المثال ننشر برامج تكوين لزوكسيليار دو في مجانيا، نوجه العائلات عبر طريق سجل الهاتف، يعني نضع فيه الشركات والمؤسسات الاقتصادية من أجل توجيه العائلات. نشرع كذلك في التنسيق بين الفاعلين. لقد بدأنا في 2021 عملية تنسيقية ما بين الجمعيات والقطاع البحث العلمي، خاصة في جامعة بوزريعة مع مخبر العائلة للأستاذة عياشي، ولكن الأعمال توقفت من حيث الموارد المادية التي كانت قليلة. الآن يعني لقد جمعنا بعض الأموال، وفي الأسابيع القادمة سوف نبدأ في تثمين عملنا. يعني نعطيكم مثال قصير. هناك عدة جمعيات تقوم بأيام دراسية ولكن لا تسجيل لا تسجيل لأعمالها ولا نشر لا مباشر في الفيسبوك. وفي هذا الشأن سوف نشتري يعني ماتيريال اوديو فيزوال، يعني هاتف وميكرو بجودة عالية من أجل نشر وعمل جمعيات. يعني لدينا كذلك مكتبة نحن نوجد، يعني شو ان بو فرانكوفون وعلى بها العربية صعبة. نحن في الحال 30 كتاب موجودين، وسوف نذهب إلى المجلات. يعني لا ريفيو جيرونتولوجي اي سوسيتي راح تكون موجودة بكثير، وسوف ننطلق هذه المكتبة عندما نلحق حوالي 100 كتاب ومجلة. يعني هنالك عندنا كذلك دور في المرافعة مع السلطات، يعني نعمل مع الأداس ووزارة التضامن من أجل رفع الانشغالات. قد تطرقنا إلى معالجة تعديل قانون الأشخاص مسنين، ولقد لاحظنا أن طرحنا سؤال كتابي للوزيرة عبر نائب، والجواب كان يعني غير متوافق. لكن هذا أمر أظن أنه ليس من أولويات السلطة التشريعية. لكن
مهدي اسمح لي، حاول برك تكون جيت برك، ما بقالناش الوقت، وكاين
يعني
محاضرة أخرى.
أذهب مباشرة للنداء لكل الباحثين. يعني إذ هناك كتب أو مجلات تريدون نشرها أو وضعها في المكتبة، نحن مستعدين لدفع الثمن من أجل الامبريسيون وكذا. وشكرا. نحن في بن عكنون، وهذا يعني بصفة قصيرة. شكرا أستاذ.
شكرا مهدي، وراح نحاولوا باش يكون هناك تعاون بين هذه الجمعية ومركز البحث في الاقتصاد المطبق من أجل التنمية. أستاذة بديعة.
Shukran Farid. Rebonjour. Je tiens à remercier d'abord toute l'assistance, Farid aussi, Shereen, pour ce pertinent webinaire et cet échange vraiment très, très fructueux. Je vous remercie en mon nom personnel et au nom de la représentante du Fonds des Nations Unies pour la population, صندوق الأمم المتحدة للسكان, Seyida Faiza Bendris. Désolée, elle était obligée, elle a été appelée à d'autres engagements, mais elle tenait vraiment à vous remercier pour je le réitère, pour ce pertinent webinaire. Et je souhaite que ce n'est pas uniquement le premier et le dernier, et que ce genre d'expérience se duplique encore et qu'il y ait d'autres webinaires aussi importants sur les questions de population, toutes les questions de population. Encore une fois, je vous remercie et je vous réitère l'appui de l'UNFPA pour vous accompagner. Je remercie aussi toute l'assistance pour sa participation active. Merci beaucoup et bon courage à tous. Merci.
شكرا لكم كامل. دونك على قبولكم دعوتنا وعلى حضوركم معنا. شكرا. Unity 7 girl.